Okay, the recording has started. So please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Naman. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our OCBC Zoom Summer Dharma session for Sunday, August 14th. My name is Janice Hirohama, and I'm a minister's assistant at the Orange County Buddhist Church. We're holding these online sessions in place of our usual Sunday family services during the summer weeks between our Obon service and the resumption of regular services after Labor Day. The format and content vary depending on who's leading that week, and these are meant to be more informal sessions that encourage questions and discussion. So today I'd like to start with us chanting the Ju-Seige together. After that, I will give a Dharma talk with time for questions and discussion. So let's start with the chanting. The text of the Ju-Seige will be on the screen, so I'll start screen sharing now. And if you have a service book physically with you, the Ju-Seige will be on page 39 of the service book. Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda. Gagon Chosegan Ishimu Jodo Shigan Fumanzo Seifujo Shoga Gao Muryoko Fuidai Seshu Usai Shobingu Seifujo Shoga Gashijo Butsudo Myosho Chojipo Kukyo Mishomon Seifujo Shoga Ryokujin Shonen Joeshu Bongyo Shigu Mujodo Ishoten Ninshi Jiniki Endaiko Fusho Musaido Shoujo Sankumyo Kosai Shuyakunan Kaihichi Egen Meshi Konmoan Heisokusho Akudo Tsudatsu Zen Shumon Kosojo Manzo Ioro Jipo Nichigatsu Shujuki Kenko Onfugen Ishu Kai Hozo Kose Kudoku Jo Daishu Chu Seppo Shishiku Huyo Isai Boots Usokushu Tokuhon Gane Shitsujo Man Toku Isan Gaio Myobutsu Mugechi Tsudatsumi Fusho Gangaku eri Toshi Saisho Son Shiganya Koka Daisen Okando Koku Shotenin To Uchin Myoke Namandabu 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 Ganishi Kudoku Yodo Seisai Dohon Bodaishin Ojo Namanda boots, Namanda boots, Namanda boots. Thank you. And I will now move over to my Dharma talk. Can you all see my PowerPoint? Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. And today I'm going to be talking about the Dharma of Obon dancing, or Bon Odori. So this seems like an appropriate time for this topic since we are in the midst of Obon season. Plus, some of you may know that I am, to put it mildly, a Bon Odori fanatic. So you can see why this topic would be especially meaningful for me. Bon Odori is the Japanese folk dancing that is performed during the Obon festival in the summer. Can folk dancing be a spiritual practice? Can it connect us with the Dharma? I'd like to share some thoughts about that. Bon Odori is folk dancing that is performed outdoors during Obon, the annual Japanese Buddhist festival during which we remember our ancestors and departed loved ones. This year at OCBC, we held our Obon festival on July 16th and 17th, and Bon Odori was a major part of our observance. In Japan, Obon was traditionally celebrated on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. These days, it takes place on either July 15th or, more often, August 15th, depending on the region of Japan. Outside Japan, there's no fixed date, and our Buddhist temples will choose a time in July or August to celebrate Obon. So this is a collection of some scenes from our OCBC Obon festival over the years. We have food. You can see some delicious looking wontons. We have games. We have taiko performances. And we have Bon Odori, Obon dancing. The origin of Obon is said to come from a Buddhist scripture called the Ulambana Sutra, known as Urabon in Japanese and abbreviated to Obon. The sutra tells the story of a monk named Moggallana, one of Shakyamuni Buddha's disciples. Through his supreme meditative powers, Moggallana was able to see his deceased mother suffering hellish torments in the realm of hungry ghosts, where people who were greedy in life end up. They are ravenously hungry and thirsty, but whatever they try to eat or drink in the hungry ghost realm turns into flames. So they're always starving, yet unable to eat and satisfy their hunger. When Moggallana asks the Buddha for help, Shakyamuni advises him to give food and clothing to the monks who are leaving their summer study retreat, That's the usual time when that retreat would happen. He does so, and as a result, his mother is liberated from her suffering in the realm of hungry ghosts, and Moggallana dances for joy, which is said to be the origin of the Bon Odori. During Obon time in Japan, people visit cemeteries, temples, and their home altars to make offerings such as incense, food, and flowers for the wandering spirits of their ancestors who are said to return to their homes at this time of year. So here is a photo of a typical cemetery offering. You see flowers, you see incense, and you see fruit. And what might seem more unusual, an eggplant and a cucumber with wooden sticks for legs. And you can see a close-up photo of those kinds of vegetables on the right. These are called shoryo uma, which means spirit horse, and they are special offerings for Obon. The cucumber represents a horse, which is said to carry our ancestors' spirits to our world at the start of Obon. And the eggplant is said to represent a cow, which returns the spirits back to the afterlife at the end of Obon. And I think the idea is the horse is faster, so bringing them back to our world, and the cow is slower, so it more reluctantly goes back to the afterlife with the spirits. Lanterns are hung during Obon to help guide the spirits on their way, and community festivals take place, with the centerpiece activity being dancing, or Bon Odori. The dancing is intended to welcome the souls of the ancestors and celebrate their presence. These kinds of Obon practices or rituals have a long history in Japan, and they exert a strong cultural pull. But in our Jodo Shinshu Buddhist tradition, we do not believe that the spirits or ghosts of our ancestors wander the earth. So we do not make offerings for the purpose of welcoming them back, nor do we dance with that in mind. Therefore, Bon Odori is usually not a part of Obon observances at Jodo Shinshu temples in Japan, unlike the other Buddhist sects there. However, Obon festivals featuring Bon Odori are major events at Jodo Shinshu temples in America. In a normal, non-pandemic year, just about every summer weekend, we have one or more Obon festivals taking place at BCA, Buddhist Churches of America, temples in Southern California. So how is it that Bon Odori is an integral part of Obon observances at Jodo Shinshu temples in the US, since it's not a custom at our temples in Japan? Well, there's a fascinating history behind that. Japanese immigrants to the US would, of course, have been familiar with the Obon customs that they grew up with. And the majority of Japanese immigrants to the US came from strongly Jodo Shinshu areas, mostly in Western Japan. So they did not have the same beliefs about disembodied spirits of ancestors that people of other Buddhist denominations did. And Obon dancing was not a part of their tradition. So that left the door open for Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga to establish Bon Odori as a uniquely American Shin Buddhist tradition that was not connected to beliefs about ancestral spirits at Obon time. This is Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga. He was instrumental in establishing Bon Odori as a tradition in the mainland United States. Hawaii is a whole nother story that I don't have time to get into here. Reverend Iwanaga was a Jodo Shinshu minister born in Japan in 1900, and he had been teaching traditional Japanese folk dances as a part of his ministry, first in Japan, then in Hawaii, and then in California. The first known Bon Odori in the mainland US was held at the San Francisco Buddhist Temple in 1931, with music selected and dance steps choreographed by Reverend Iwanaga. He was careful to frame and define Bon Odori in a specifically Jodo Shinshu Buddhist context. And he traveled to temples throughout the West Coast teaching Bon Odori, and it really caught hold. Just a dozen years later, the custom of Bon Odori was so well established in the mainland US that it was a part of Obon observances in most of the widely scattered camps in which Japanese Americans were incarcerated during World War II. And just a week or so ago, Jim and I were at the Heart Mountain pilgrimage in Heart Mountain, Wyoming, commemorating that incarceration camp. And we saw this in the museum there at Heart Mountain. And it's a photo of Obon dancers at Heart Mountain during the war. So it had become really a part of Jodo Shinshu Buddhist culture, within a dozen years after Reverend Iwanaga introduced it. Through his influence and that of his many students who further spread the dances, Obon dancing became an integral part of Obon celebrations in the Jodo Shinshu temples in the Buddhist churches of America. Here's a photo of Reverend Iwanaga teaching Bon Odori to Dharma school teachers for the 50th anniversary celebration of the BCA in 1948. As Reverend Masao Kodani, former minister at the Senshin Buddhist Temple, has written, Bon Odori in America has thus come to have a strong Jodo Shinshu connection, which has moved away from the traditional meaning of making offerings to the souls of one's ancestors and towards a more Buddhistic view of acknowledging our ongoing relations with those who have died and remembering them in gratitude. And you can see that attitude reflected in this sign that I saw at the San Fernando Valley Buddhist Temple's Obon Festival. As Obon is a time to reflect with boundless gratitude upon those who have passed on before us. So it really reflects this Jodo Shinshu attitude toward Obon that is different from what we would see in Japan. So with this cultural and historical background in mind, let's think about Bon Odori as a spiritual practice, as a Dharma gate, if you will. So what is a spiritual practice? Broadly speaking, I would describe it as a specific action or activity that cultivates, nurtures, or contributes to one's spiritual awareness or growth. Spiritual practices can take different forms, as we can see in things that we might do regularly as Shin Buddhists. It can be a physical gesture, like bowing or doing gassho. It can be the recitation of a phrase, such as saying itadakimasu, to show our gratitude before eating. We might make an offering, such as incense or fruit or flowers on the altar. Chanting is a spiritual practice, as when we chanted the Jusege a few minutes ago. Meditation, like we do in our Sunday and Wednesday mindfulness sessions, is another well-recognized spiritual practice. What these practices and activities have in common is that they all have the potential to increase your religious awareness, or deepen your spiritual understanding, or help you reach a spiritual insight or knowledge that you may not be able to otherwise. And I believe that Bon Odori can be such a spiritual practice. In fact, Reverend Kodani has described Bon Odori as Horaku, or Buddhist practice. He uses that term specifically. And I think there are a number of ways in which dancing in general can be a practice that deepens our spiritual understanding. First, dance can be a form of meditation that allows us to access, feel, and express things, such as ultimate reality, that are beyond words. The whirling dervishes in the Sufi tradition of Islam are twirling around in order to reach a trance state of mystical union with the divine. Bon Odori doesn't put us in a trance, I think, but the rhythmic and repetitive body movements of the folk dance that are set to music can create a heightened awareness and attention, a type of meditative state that allows us to feel and perceive things that we might not otherwise. This action of the body can open our minds. Dance also allows us the possibility of living completely in the moment, without conscious thought or calculation, in an ego-less state of being. And I'll talk about that more in a bit. In addition, dancing creates the opportunity for community, oneness, and connection. With a folk dance, such as Bon Odori, you don't dance alone. You are moving in unison to the same music, to the same beat, with dozens or hundreds of other people. Just as when we chant a sutra together, there's a powerful sort of, I like to think of it as a resonance, an echoing that comes from doing the same thing at the same time with others together, but not identically. So this is an OCBC Obon, and everybody is lifting their arms up in the air, kind of at the same moment, doing the same thing. And there's this like kind of power to this sense of being together with so many people and all acting together in unison. So Reverend Kodani, who I seem to be quoting a lot today, often says that Jodo Shinshu is a religion of experience, not faith. I agree. And I think that experiencing, that is, physically performing an action, is a powerful way of embodying or actualizing our spiritual awareness. And dancing is one of the most physical things we can do. And I think that is what makes it such a meaningful kind of spiritual practice. Dancing is, at its heart, experiential. It's not an intellectual thing. You don't dance in your head. You dance with your body. All of your senses are engaged. You hear the music. You feel the vibration of the taiko drum that keeps the beat. You see all the people around you, many dressed in colorful yukata, summer kimonos, and hapi coats. More importantly, you move your body through space, your feet, your legs, your hands, your arms, your head. You sweat. You breathe hard. You become one with the music and one with all the people surrounding you who are listening to the same music and performing the same movements that you are doing. One of my favorite modern Bon Odori songs is Bambutsu no Tsunagari, written and choreographed by Nobuko Miyamoto. That's one of the interesting things about Bon Odori is in recent years, we have seen new Bon Odori songs and enter the canon, so to speak, of Bon Odori and become widely known and performed. Bambutsu no Tsunagari is a multicultural Bon Odori that is in English and Spanish. And the title of the song means all things connected in Japanese. The lyrics eloquently reflect that sense of oneness that I was talking about. So they go, in the circle we dance, no beginning, no ending. In the circle we dance, I am you, you are the other me. So there's this powerful feeling of oneness that's felt in Bon Odori, and that's reflected in the lyrics of the song. A key aspect of Bon Odori is that you should just dance without thinking about how other people see you, without worrying about your lack of dancing ability, without trying to show off your dancing skills. To dance without self-consciousness, without thinking about what you look like or what other people may think is truly difficult. Why is that? Because our egos get in the way. The ego is the part of us that looks at everything only in relation to ourselves. My ego looks at every object and person and situation in a dualistic way and makes a judgment about it. This is good. This is bad. This is right. This is wrong. I like this, or I don't like that. Ultimately, the self-centeredness that arises from the ego blinds us to two great truths, impermanence and interdependence. And as it happens, dancing in public is an excellent way of confronting and challenging our egos. Reverend Kodani says, Bon Odori is to reach a state of forgetting your ego and thereby being able to remember and reconnect to those who have died. This is done by forgetting your ego, not indulging it. Whether you learn every dance or come to the dance cold, your ego will initially flaunt or be embarrassed. Real Bon Odori is that moment when you forget showing off and being embarrassed. Bon Odori's spiritual meaning is to discover your ego through dance, and thus being able, even momentarily, to forget the self. That moment of just dancing is Bon Odori, and it is then that one naturally remembers the dead. So that's what Reverend Kodani says. And Reverend Kodani, I quote him a lot because for the last 40 years at least, Reverend Kodani has really talked about and spoken about Bon Odori in a way that tries to make us aware the Buddhistic and specifically Jodo Shinshu meaning of the dance. And it's somewhat controversial, but Reverend Moss kind of decries the idea of Bon Odori as being purely a Japanese cultural thing, as being a way of attracting people to our Obon festivals so that we can raise money to keep our temples going. Reverend Kodani has been outspoken in his disapproval of that kind of attitude toward Bon Odori. And he really wants to kind of connect it to its Buddhistic meaning. And so the Senshin Buddhist temple, where Reverend Moss spent his entire ministerial career, really has a kind of different Bon Odori than most other temples. I've been to it once. It's very unique. He has Senshin, the Bon Odori there is always on 4th of July weekend, which cuts down the attendance, which I think is on purpose. It is not coupled with what Reverend Moss calls a carnival, with games and raffle tickets and food sales, and he really kind of discourages any commercial aspects to Bon Odori there. It's really focused on memorializing the dead and just dancing. And Reverend Moss has spoken and written about this extensively, and sometimes very vivid language, which I won't get into here. After my husband Jim and I began coming to OCBC in 2006, we started attending the Obon festivals here, and of course, volunteering to work at them. And I learned that our festival was just one of many held throughout the summer. So I didn't grow up Buddhist. I didn't grow up doing Bon Odori. I think occasionally my parents would take us to the nearest Obon festival, which was at the Gardena Buddhist Church, and we would eat the food, and we would, my parents would play the bingo, and we would watch the dancing, but I didn't understand what the dancing was about. I certainly didn't participate in the dancing, and I didn't know the dances anyway. So I had some very fleeting experiences with Obon and Bon Odori growing up, but did not grow up with it as part of my religious background. At our Obon at OCBC, I would watch the Bon Odori, but I did not join in the dancing, even though I was captivated by the music, and the dancing looked like, tremendous fun. I didn't want to dance because I did not know the steps. As I said, I did not grow up going to temple, and so I didn't know the traditional Bon Odori dances, let alone the newer ones that have come along in recent years. I'd done ballroom dancing earlier in my life, and I knew that I'm not the quickest learner or the most graceful mover. I thought I would be a klutz and that I would look foolish trying to do the Obon dances. And I was intimidated to see so many people who seemed to know the moves perfectly, and by those who were so beautifully dressed in their yukatas. So even though my friends inside the dance circle would urge me to join in, I spent 6 years kind of wistfully watching from the sidelines. In 2012, I finally decided to join in the Bon Odori. Reverend Kodani has said often, Bon Odori is not meant to be watched. it is meant to be danced. I read that statement many times without applying it to myself. It's always easier to see other people than to see yourself, isn't it? But at some point, for some reason, it sunk in. Perhaps it required at least 6 years of my going to temple, studying, and listening to the Dharma before I was ready to hear it, before I was finally realizing that it was my ego that was stopping me from dancing, from participating in the Bon Odori. So I finally decided to get over myself and start dancing. It wasn't easy. I judged myself constantly. I was clumsy. My ego self was sure that everyone in the world was watching me and could see that I was a terrible dancer. But tried to keep my ego out of it. I kept showing up. I kept trying. I kept making mistakes. That was 10 years ago. And once I started in earnest, there was no turning back. Now, as my husband Jim can attest, in a normal, non-pandemic year, every weekend during Obon season, I would be going to a different temple to attend their festival and dance. I have danced Bon Odori at temples from Phoenix, Arizona to Oxnard, from Sun Valley to San Diego. Even this year, when most temples are still curtailing their Obon festivals because of COVID, I went on a road trip with my cousin last month to the San Jose and the Fresno temples to dance in their Bon Odori. This is me dancing at the Bon Odori at Senchin, Reverend Kodani's longtime temple. And that was, I think, in 2017. So I'm hooked now. I can't stop dancing. Obon is a time when we honor the memory of our loved ones who have passed away. We take time for reflection and contemplation, but any sorrow we feel is transmuted into joyful gratitude and remembrance of our loved ones. So although Obon is a memorial observance, it is not sad or mournful, or it should not be. When we dance the Bon Odori, we honor the memories of those who have gone before us in what I think is the best way possible, by remembering them with joy and thankfulness. And that is why in Jodo Shinshu, we have another name for Obon, which is Kangi-e, or gathering of joy. When I dance at Obon, I'm acknowledging, as Reverend Moss says, my ongoing relationship with my departed loved ones and with the ancestors to whom I owe my present life. By doing so, I affirm and honor the fact that my existence is due to them. Remembering them prompts me to reflect, to contemplate the infinite causes and conditions that intersected to create me and to enable me to be here in this life. Bon Odori is above all an opportunity to express gratitude. Gratitude is at the heart of our spiritual path as Shin Buddhists. Dancing to remember the dead is a concrete way of expressing our gratitude. And as such, I think it's a spiritual practice worth cultivating. As I dance, I remember my loved ones, honor their memories, and express my gratitude for all that they did for me. Although they are no longer here physically, they are a part of me because their existence and their actions have influenced me profoundly and continue to do so. My father, my brother, my grandparents live on in me through my memories and by helping make me the person that I am. So I say, Okage-sama de, I am who I am because of you. Obon dancing is the farthest thing, I think, from morbid or negative. It's a life-affirming spiritual practice. As we appreciate the here and now, it encourages us to live more fully in the time that we have. It reminds us of the mutual and interconnected nature of our existence and the many ways in which we are tied to others. And it presents us with an opportunity to remember and honor those who came before us and to express our gratitude to those who have enriched our lives through their love, their care, and their teaching. You know, ever since I read about the history of Obon and about Reverend Iwanaga, you know, I think of him too sometimes when I do the Bon Odori, because it's thanks to him that Bon Odori has become a uniquely Japanese American Obon observance, something that is really created in America with roots in Japan, like our Jodo Shinshu Buddhist temples, our BCA Buddhist temples here in America. And as it happens, when I was up in San Jose last month for their Bon Odori, which is usually enormous. I think usually they have 2,000 people, maybe 1,500, 2,000 people dancing on the street in front of the San Jose Betsuin Buddhist temple. Altogether, it's tremendous. It might be the biggest Bon Odori in California. And I had the honor of meeting the head dance teacher at San Jose, who is Mrs. Reiko Iwanaga. She is the sister of Reverend Kenji Akahoshi, who was until recently the minister at the San Diego Buddhist Temple before he retired. He has roots in San Jose. And Reiko Iwanaga is the daughter-in-law of Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga, who established Bon Odori as a tradition in our American Buddhist temples. And so, you know, I feel that tie when I got to meet Iwanaga Sensei. You know, that was a really concrete tie to Reverend Iwanaga and all that he's done for us. And so that connection continues and it's carried on through Reiko Sensei to all these people who are dancing in San Jose and to all of us as well. So it's one thing to think in our heads that I am grateful. It's a whole different thing to dance, feeling free, feeling alive, egoless, and with no room for thought other than, I'm alive. I'm grateful because of my ancestors and all who came before me, because of the causes and conditions that have supported and nurtured me. I am here in this moment, breathing, moving, dancing, laughing. Thank you. Thank you. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen sharing now and pull up my gallery so I could see all of you. And again, a reminder that we are recorded. I'm not sure whether the Q&A session will be recorded. I think we don't ordinarily do that. But in case we are and you don't want to appear in the recording, again, this is your chance to mute yourselves and turn off your camera if you wish. So thank you for listening to my Dharma talk. And I'm interested to hear what your reactions are to it. For those of you who have done Bon Odori, and for those of you who have not. So does anybody want to share anything? Okay, I know some of you are dancers.
I believe
okay.
It's possible.
Oh, yes, and you can unmute yourself, I believe, if you have something to say. Is that right, Jim?
Chat.
Okay. All right. So, Craig, did you want to say something?
Well, I'm kind of going through Obon withdrawal this year because I got to the OCBC website too late to register.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Sorry
and I haven't
about
traveled
that.
to any of the other temples that have that are perhaps less restrictive about people participating. So this is probably going to be for the first time in Gee, a few years now that I won't get to dance, but I dance in my head.
So, well, first I want to mention that there is open Bon Odori at the Gardena Buddhist Temple today, starting, I think, at 5 o'clock. They're dancing in the street, no pre-registration required. You can just show up and just dance. So that there is a chance to do that tonight.
Very good.
Yeah. And the other thing is, so I know you're going through withdrawal, as you said, from Bon Odori. So why is that? What does Obon dancing mean to you? And why do you miss it?
Thank you.
Well, in the course of my ordinary life, I don't really find times to express gratitude to all that came before me and how I ended up here in this life and in this time and all of that. And I really appreciate that aspect of Obon to be able to do something physical to express gratitude for all that came before me. I mean, it feels stronger and more connected to me than like I have several relatives that have passed, and we have markers at a cemetery that's about 2 miles away from where I live. That doesn't feel quite as my connection to that doesn't feel quite as strong as when I go to Obon.
Mm-hmm.
So many of them were not Buddhist.
And is there an aspect of being together with other people that helps awaken those kinds of feelings of connection? Oh,
absolutely. I'm also forever grateful to a friend of mine who got me off the sidelines just watching people dance. And great, you have to get into the street. You have to participate. So it's all quite wonderful.
So yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and I want to correct any misapprehension people might have. There's nothing wrong with just going out and just dancing. There are plenty of people who aren't Buddhists who join in the Bon Odori. And I don't think that every time you step out into the dance circle and do Bon Odori that you have to have this big religious experience. What I'm saying is this is an opportunity for us. A special kind of opportunity for us to kind of access the Dharma in a different way than we usually do. And the physicality of it, the communal aspect of it, the music and dance that really connects us with something that's kind of beyond our rational thought, all of that kind of gives us that opportunity. But there's nothing wrong with just going out there and just having fun too. It doesn't have to always be an awakening experience or a spiritual practice. So, any other thoughts that people would like to share?
Hi,
Janet. Hi.
Oh, did you want to go first, Mary?
Oh, thank you. Mine is very short, so don't worry. My name is Mary. Okay, Mary Sonata. I wanted to thank Janice, okay, for telling me more about Obon, okay. I had different opinions about it. One was I thought Obon was mostly to remember, kind of like remember your ancestor, and then I had this other feeling about showing gratitude, okay? But then there's a third one I should mention. A third one is you hit upon it about socializing, because I get to meet people I haven't seen for some time, but in the same time, I'm not to forget came before me, all right? And I guess I'm kind of rambling right now because I have too many things in my head, but I really appreciate your Dharma talk because it kind of put things into perspective. Okay, I'm like you. I didn't participate in the dance because I was very shy. I didn't want people looking at me, and I also critique myself too. So a lot of times I would sit back and watch, right? But then I did participate. I had my children by that time. So we did Obon. And like you said, it kind of frees you, all right? You kind of, with the music, you forget about who's watching you, who's there, You're just, you're being with other people. You're like oneness, okay? I wanted to say that aspect, all right? And I thank you again very much for all the reverends who did all these Dharma talks, because it kind of focuses me a little bit more. I hope you can hear me, okay? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mary. I think that dancing together in community is, kind of the Sangha in action. And you feel this real sense of togetherness, like everybody with their hands up in the air. And there's just this kind of whole atmosphere. You could dance by yourself, right? You could dance in your room. I do that sometimes too. But there's something very special about actually sharing the same space with people and dancing together that I think is very profound and resonant, I think. So thank you for sharing that. Janet.
Hi, I really appreciated your talk to learn a lot more about what the, Bon Odori, kind of the origins and what it means. For me, it's been very different. I've played in a taiko group for probably the past like 30 years, which is not associated with a Buddhist temple. And over the years, we get invited by various people to participate in their Obon by performing. And so usually when we've performed there, then obviously our hosts have always invited us to join the Bon Odori. And so our group usually does it as a group. And so I would do it as the whole group. And so it was not something that I necessarily felt shy about because we were all doing it and we were all felt we were equally not experienced dancers. And, so it was something we did, but without, I think, really thinking a lot about really what was the meaning of all of it, except it was just sort of part of the experience of, being at an Obon festival.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and was it hard to get out there for the first time?
Not really, because I felt like I had other people with me that, were just as kind of apprehensive about doing it. And usually they would try to find us a couple people that knew the dance as well that we could follow. They'd point out certain people, like just follow this person and they'll help you. And so I felt it was very welcoming, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is there anybody who out here who's willing to admit to not doing Bon Odori and because you're hesitant for one reason or another? I guess I shouldn't ask people to out themselves like that, but one thing that just came to me actually when I just now as I'm thinking about it is when I the first time I did Bon Odori, it was, I think, 2012 at OCBC. And, I didn't have a hoppy coat, right? And in fact, those of you who attend OCBC know we have a shortage of OCBC hoppy coats. We haven't made any new hoppy coats in many years. And so the hoppy coat I had belonged to my late brother, Kent, who played in the Dayon Taiko group at OCBC. And he was the reason why Jim and I came to OCBC in the first place, because, Kent played in the taiko group for 19 years. And when he passed away and we had his funeral at OCBC, that was our first contact for Jim and me with Jodo Shinshu and with OCBC. And so the first time that I danced the Bon Odori 2012 at OCBC, I wore my brother's hoppy coat, which was came into my hands after he passed away. It's much too long for me. But, that was, I think, for me, a really concrete way of keeping in mind, this isn't about me. and thanks to him, I'm here and I have the opportunity to do this. That's just a memory that came to me as we were talking just now. Anybody else have any thoughts to share? Have any of you actually, Marcia, please.
So thank you so much it's so nice to still always be learning so much. I didn't know that about the dancing. I thought Obon my first year, I didn't even know what Obon was. And then when I learned, I envision, it's funny you mentioned that reverend that wants to keep it separate from the festival, because I sort of thought that it was like a celebration of ancestors and a way to sort of welcome them, that they would sort of have a happy, joyful place and see that joy. And so in my mind, it doesn't seem like you need to separate the fun games and things. And then I've gone back and forth with the dancing. So initially we didn't know. And then there was the class. I didn't know that there were those weeks of prep. When we did that. And then we were really excited to do it. And then there was the year that it rained and they had to do the social hall. And Diego is the only one in my family that wanted to do it with me. And he was really excited and we tried to join, but it was so crowded. I don't know if for those of you that were there, it was a picture of that huge parking lot trying to squeeze that into the social hall, plus the it was, and I remember it was different in that it was you shouldn't be here, you need to be on the outside, or it would it was not all fun and roses. I think it was we want to have fun and you don't know what you're doing and you need to be out there. Oh, and I think I was also carrying Diego, he was little. Anyway, so then I kind of got turned off by it, oh, you're actually supposed to know what you're doing. You can't just and I didn't know oh, there's kind of levels and inexperienced people should be on the outside. So I got turned off. This year, I've taken on more. I've recently seen these things around for happiness, you should always be trying to do something that is fun that you're bad at. You should always just for fun, and you should be bad at it. So Diego wanted to do it this year. It's been a year, we haven't done, I was I don't know any of the dances. And I thought, I don't care. I'm just going to go out there. And it was really fun. And I think there is something in that picture that you showed, you see people either smiling or super focused. So you cannot think about anything else. If you don't know these things, then you are mindful. You are trying to figure out the next move and do it. And your mind is not anywhere but there. And I think that's good for us. And it's fun if you could. It is kind of, I think, fighting with your self-consciousness, your ego. So I think that that's, even if we aren't aware, just trying to do it and let go and have fun is part, I think, of the practice, because it's practicing letting go of ego and being joyful. I think also helps you be kind to other people and be a nicer person outside of that dancing. So yeah, I think it's really fun, and I think it's a good way to practice
Yes.
practice the path.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I do remember that rainy year, and I think it was 2015, and it was kind of a mess in there. And I was not an experienced dancer really at that point, and it was very crowded, and people weren't necessarily that nice as we were bumping into each other, and so that was hard. But I also think that is part of the realness of it, is when when you're at the Bon Odori in the circle, you do see people who are showing off. You do see young folks who are doing these like outrageous dance moves where they're like jumping around and doing stuff. You see little kids who are like running around and you're afraid you're going to trip over them. And you see people who, totally don't know what they're doing, obviously. And it's all a part of the experience. So it's not just about you and how the dancing makes you feel, but it's about you're kind of in this in the midst of humanity in real life and seeing people. I mean, I see little kids running around and at first I was irritated, like, you're not dancing. I'm afraid I'm going to trip over you, whatever. Now I look at them and I think, wow, what would it be like to be that free and to not be like thinking, but just being yourself. And that's what I think when I see a little kid in the dance circle now, especially the really young ones. So yeah, I think your feelings about it can evolve. But it's, I think it really is as you say, doing something you're bad at. It's a way of confronting your ego. And that's always a good exercise in Buddhism, because that's our biggest struggle, isn't it? To see ourselves and to let go of our ego self. Any other thoughts that anyone would like to share about Obon or Bon Odori? So our time is just about up. I see we have 10:58, and I thank you all for joining us today. We are continuing with our Zoom Summer Dharma next week, and I believe it will be Jem Pollard who will be giving the talk and leading the discussion. So we'll look forward to that. And I know it's, at least in Southern California, it's very hot. So stay cool, stay hydrated, and take care. And we will see you next week. Please close with Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu.